Hey everyone, my name is Sean Cotter. I am the executive director for Wicked Queer, Boston's LGBTQ plus film festival, and I'm here with the cast and crew of Playdurizm. I'm going to have them go around and introduce themselves, but we're so excited to have you guys here. So maybe Izzy, if you want to start, we'll kind of go around.
Okay. Hi, my name is Izzy, and I play Drew in Playdurizm.
Austin, you want to go next?
Hi everyone, my name is Austin Chun and I play Andrew in Playdurizm.
Jem?
Hey, I'm Jem. I am the director of the film and also I act Demir in it.
Last but not least, Martin and Steve.
Yeah, we are not acting, but we're behind the computer, sometimes behind the monitor. We are producers of the film. Hello.
Welcome everybody. Again, I'm really glad to have the opportunity to sit down and talk with you guys. I love this film. This film is so weird and awesome and amazing. And we're really kind of happy to sort of have it as part of our festival programming this year. Jem, being the sort of the writer and the director and also the star of it, could you tell me a little bit about how the concept of the film and sort of how it sort of came to being?
Like the concept. I mean, it was actually it was like different concept merging into one. You know, like I mean, it is a personal story to me, and I actually started to develop this like in a very early age. I was 17 when I started, and I mean, and like back then I was like in Turkey, like very unsatisfied with my life and everything. And I mean, you probably heard like the phase of I grew up with the movies, you know.
Mhm.
Well, I kinda groove into them, you know. That's how it feels like. So that's where plagiarism comes out actually, and like the main concept of it. And also I've been like a fan of you know, erotic thrillers of like 90s because it's like so sensual and amazing. And then I was thinking like they don't do those kind of films anymore. It feels like, you know, we have retreated from body into the mind lately, and it feels like sensuality is gone.
Mm.
But there is still violence on screen, you know, like violence is dancing, it's spectacular, it's intimate, it's scary, and these are all what sex used to be, how sex used to feel like. So and then I guess subconsciously what I did in plagiarism was using violence to bring the sex back. But this was all subconscious, you know, like because like it like main idea was just always like making this homage of like 90s erotic trailers. Like the in the beginning the film was like called Rebel Instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, you know, that other reality aspect of it we added later on to the concept with Morris. So yeah, like it really like progressed by itself after involving Morris to the process, which is the screenwriter.
I guess maybe my next question would be for Izzy and Austin, and also you too, Jem. But we'll start with Izzy. How did you sort of approach your role? I mean, you play this sort of character that's briefly there,
Yeah.
but very also important as well. So, I mean, how did you sort of approach your sort of the role of and kind of like bring that to life?
Well, for me, I mean, I guess like she does seem to be sort of the villain in a way. She's not very likable. And so I always try to figure out, I guess, why that would be. And so I mean, I think I wanted to kind of delve into like her backstory a little bit. I wrote kind of a journal type thing because there wasn't a lot to go on from the script. Just kind of like little bits and bobs, which I grabbed and then kind of made up something for myself as well. So just this kind of thing of, she had this sort of abusive relationship with her twin growing up. And that sort of progressed into when she met Andrew. And so the reason she sort of does all these things is because of how she grew up, and sort of this like sort of manipulative relationship that she has with Andrew. And so I kind of was like all this murder and drugs and everything is like, there must be some reason behind it. It's not just there. She's not just doing it for the sake of it. So the whole like kind of threat that she feels from Demir, it's like, why is she acting so psychotic towards this poor kid? Like, it's not very fair. So I sort of, I guess it's because you know, Andrew kind of sort of manipulating her in a way to kill people who came in the way of their relationship. And because she's so connected to her twin growing up, and having this number one person who is everything to her, she doesn't want to lose this number one person in her life. So I kind of was like, okay, that kind of makes sense in a way. Like if there's someone who's gonna threaten this very intense relationship that she believes is like the only thing that makes her worthy of being like beautiful and being loved, then I guess it makes sense that she wants him out of the picture. So it's like, I guess it's just trying to figure out, just trying to delve into that and make sense of as much as I can of why this kind of stuff would happen. And I just find that really fascinating, because there's not like, you know, from the first surface, she seems a little psychotic, which I love. I think it's a lot of fun to play. It's a lot of fun to play. But you know, there's always a reason, and there's always something that drives that. So I think it's kind of like growing up, trying to figure out this relationship with her twin, which was, let's be honest, a little bit. It's something wrong there. So I think that was like kind of the driving force. That's why she feels that she needs this one person in her life, and if anyone threatens that, it's like, nah, they're out. This is not okay. And I'm gonna get rid of you. So just kind of trying to figure that out and make her a little bit nicer to me anyway. So I
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because I mean, there is a little bit of depth to your character in the film too. So maybe Austin, the same question for you for Andrew.
Great.
Like, you're sort of like the main protagonist, really, in many ways. You're sort of like the hinge of the relationship of
right. You know, I have a lot of things to say about that. Firstly, just attacking the character itself was an interesting task, because this character is playing a character inside of a character, you know, where he's already locked into a certain set of movements that he has to do. You know, he can't break free from that. But at the same time, basically the first time you're seeing Andrew is the first time he's also feeling out of place in his world. Something's not right, you know? So it starts off with you not getting necessarily that grounded sense of who he is. It's a sense of he's already off kilter. You just don't know how much yet or for what reason. And he doesn't either, which is why I think this is the first time that he isn't the master of his own domain. You know, he's not in control of all of his reality. And that's what sort of scares him and drives him in this film. But all that to say, the things that I wanted to bring to this were, you know, a truthfulness, a reality to what they were doing, but at the same time, he can't break away from this. You know, he is forced to be in a certain way. And then only in towards the end of the film, which I don't know if we can give too much away, but
you can just spoil, you know, it's going to go at the end of the film. So don't.
Okay, great.
Of talking.
Great.
We're gonna unpack it.
Okay, awesome. You know, but at the end of the film, it's finally when I think Andrew realizes what's going on, connects with that new reality that's his reality, and it becomes his truth, which is great. I think there's a lot of things that go along, which, you make a choice every day, and just one small choice, this or that, could end up ultimately in being the same thing with two different people, two different places, depending on how your life works out. And it's sort of a beautiful capturing of a time in this character that's so strong, that believes that he's got it all under control, because he's not just driven by sexuality or anything like that, but even more, he gets everything from this pleasure, this power. He's I always wanted to bring him in as the modern man. He's everybody, he's nobody. He doesn't have to be one thing or another, because he is that modern man. But because he comes in and he's stuck in these conditions where he can't break out of, and it's a shakeup for his life, you see him, I think, be a lot more open, intimately vulnerable a little bit throughout the movie, where is, let's say, if you took a snapshot 1 week prior in the film, you would see him be a much different demeanor, a much more stoic person. So that was a lot of fun, because it was sort of like peeling back the onions on this character of, I'm an actor playing an actor in this film, so there's so much of, you don't want to be too much this or too much that, because he wants to be a certain way. And then at the same time, to go along with the rebel instinct, like, he has to be a certain actor of a certain stage, in life and category and quality. And so all of that was really rich and wonderful role to play.
Jem, how about yourself, as far as like the writing, obviously writing yourself as a character, but also writing these two as characters as well?
It was like acting, it was a different process for me, because what I needed to do was basically detaching the character as much as I can from myself. And then, because like it is based on personal things, that's like true, but like it's just based, it's not like what it is. In the end, it's a fantasy film, right? So like I need to just keep the core, but like detach all of it from myself, and then look at that core from a different perspective. That's how it felt like. So in a way that, like, while I was acting it, I was seeing the entire story in a whole different mindset than how I wrote it. So it was like, it was a very weird, and it was very psychologically intense experience. Like, so in the end, I really didn't feel like acting, it was like a trip to my own mind, shooting this film.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I got the sort of the personalness of the sort of narrative too. I mean, just after watching it and then actually giving it a second watch, like I watched it last night just to get it fresh in my mind for our conversation, and watching it again, it would really kind of like it sat slightly different, because it's still like, you made such a beautiful horror film, but at the same time you see a lot more of the psychology watching it back again, because you know that what the twist is at the end, and you sort of like can look at it through that lens of sort of that knowledge of what happens at the end, and how it sort of informs sort of everything in the first part of the film.
Yes. I'm sorry, what is the question? That was such a long sentence, I forgot the question.
Like, I mean, like, as far as like writing yourself and writing the both characters, kind of how did you sort of breach that sort of in the sort of script? Because I feel like in many ways that the characters Izzy and Austin play are also extensions of the main character in many ways, because it is the sort of creation of the lead sort of sort of like dealing with the traumatic ending.
Yeah, so like okay, technically when we started this process in the beginning, it didn't have like this traumatic ending.
Okay.
So it is like really something that we come up in the later rewrites, and like creating, you know, Andrew and Drew, it was actually like they're these two picture perfect Hollywood types, you know,
Mhm.
like so it's just like so clear from what they are based on. So and then like, you know, we needed to give like material to actors to work with, but also keep keep their characters flat in a way, like in a surface level, because they're like film characters.
Mhm.
So it was actually like quite challenging for them, I can like see, because it's just they have to bring depth on, they had to bring depth onto the surface level characters in the end, like the actors. So I think they did like an amazing job. And we knew with Morris that like while we're writing it, just because of the concept of the film, because like technically Demir is the depth of this film, you know, like he brings the depth into that surface level picture perfect Hollywood film.
Mhm.
And so yeah, like in the beginning, like we knew with Morris that it's going to be like hard thing to ask from like the actors, because you also gotta like, you know, give them a depth and make things going, so they're gonna feel like, you know, actual characters throughout the film. So I think they did an amazing job, like both Izzy and Austin.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And I just thought that conceptually it was super really interesting that it was like the film within a film within a film within a film. And that's sort of the way that the main character kind of deals with the trauma, is sort of sinking back into this sort of video fantasy almost, and very like Videodrome. I mean, you quote Videodrome in the film, which is kind of great. So I mean, obviously that's an influence of it. What other sort of influences did you have when you were making with this? Because it's such it's a beautiful sort of like candy colored sort of world that you create to sort of deal with this traumatic ending.
I mean, first of all, like I wanted to create this contrast in between the story and the visuals in a way, like, because like technically this is, the film is happening in a film, so it's not reality. So it's like, you know, like sometimes you see like so many, like for example, before going to high school, I just saw so many high school films and I was like very excited, and then you go high school and it's nothing like that, it's shit, it's
So true.
so basically like watching too many films always create this effect, right? So I needed everything to look unrealistically perfect, like a Barbie dollhouse,
Mhm.
so that like even when, because like technically in films people are used to seeing everything so perfectly, so I need to force that aesthetic on the edge so that people will actually question, okay, this is like a little extra, like unrealistically pretty. So and also that creates this contrast with the story, you know, like with how dark it is actually what's going on, you know, and you don't even have like any clue until the end of the film almost.
I mean, that's really true. So maybe Martin and Steve, if you can kind of maybe chime in on the sort of the look of the film and sort of your contributions to sort of making that sort of fantasy slash traumaticness sort of happen.
Yeah, sorry. No, we've first of all, we've always been interested in making films that don't just fit one genre and exploit that. So we've been working on some shorts. I mean, we could say that this is basically our debut feature, also as producers. It was debut feature for Jem as director, but also for us as producers. And we've been working on some shorts. But for the feature, we've sort of been exploring a few ideas. Some things sort of didn't become concrete right away as projects, and we thought, okay, this will take 2-3 years until we finish to develop some other script and get the finances. But then we bumped into Gem. Lucky, I mean, this film was really born on on the lucky star. We could talk about all the great things that happened that made this project come true so quickly. But from the time we received the script and agreed to do it, and the time we were ready to roll, 6 months had happened only. because we received the script and we're like, we looked at each other with Martin like, wait, this is what we've been waiting to do for years. And like we said, let's not let this chance go. Let's do it. Let's try to find the finances. Let's try to get this off the ground as quickly as possible while, you know, the momentum is there, and do it. I mean, we knew we were limited with the financing as well. So to answer your question, as regards to the look, we also knew that Jem wanted a very beautiful film. So we sat down with him, we sat down with Morris, and we're like, we have this amount of money. We think the money should go on the screen. And for that, we should limit maybe the number of days of the shoot, and we should limit the number of locations. And so this conversation kind of developed into the story, and through redrafts or rewrites, sorry, we basically eliminated some superfluous locations and concentrated the story around this very small universes in Rebel Instinct, but also in Demir's head, and we built the entire set in a studio. The entire film is shot in studio, from the Andrews flat to the small exterior we have, to the video store, to the nightclub. And basically that was the only way we could have it under control, that no location would fall out, that something else would happen, and it would impact basically how the film would look. It was a very controlled production. I mean, in a way, you know, we have a limited budget, and we hope it doesn't show on the screen, but we had everything under control. We rehearsed this film to to such an extent. I mean, EC and Austin can talk about it. We flew them from US and from London a month prior to the shoot to rehearse the film with Jem, and we wanted to make sure that everything is going according to a very strict plan.
Yeah, it was also a lot about giving the actors the space, you know, maximizing the time on the set, not to have weird logistical shifts, yes, and so on. And then it was like, okay, studio, theater, stage, you know, let's get them in there, lock them in for 20 days, you know, and let them develop it. Despite there being the rehearsal, I think the look of the set and so on was a big part, that the characters could also, you know, perform, develop, you know, and bring the depth that it has.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see that the money is on the screen because it looks kind of amazing. So Jem, I really kind of love that you also feature like, I mean, the film has a sort of like timelessness to it, even though it looks very sort of like 80s and 90s, but it could be anywhere in that sort of time frame. And I love that you brought in a video store, because I mean, they don't exist anymore. So which I kind of love that it's there, because I also have very fond memories of video stores, and sort of being that person who is like super excited about that release that was coming out and being like, I need to see it or I'm gonna die, you know, that kind of thing. I love that sort of that energy that you kind of put in there, because that was also a very real for a lot of us at sort of in that sort of time frame. So I mean, what was it sort of the thought about, sort of besides the sort of romanticism about the sort of Arabic thrillers and stuff like that, that you wanted it to really kind of be kind of set in that sort of moment in time?
Well, technically, since it's happening in a film, we always like had this idea of like, actually it's like two reasons. First of all, one of the reasons is like it's actually like a connection that is coming from Bacon's paintings, because there is something, you know, like this is like just like it was a conversation between me and Morris, and like in those paintings there is like this two-dimensionalness. I don't know if that's a word. Okay. Okay, cool.
We'll go with it.
Yeah, and the film world that Demir enters, it also has to have like two dimensions. So it's almost like creating a film without a setting. That would give that effect. So that's why actually it's just like we kind of don't know where they are. which city, where, and it's not important because it's not about that. And it's kind of in the end serves for the story because it had to be two-dimensional. Like Demir is the only three-dimensional character in that because he's coming from reality. So yeah, so that's it basically. It's just it had no setting.
I guess my next question is like, one, I absolutely love the sex scene after the incestuous brother is killed with the golf club. I absolutely adore that sex scene because it was like, when I saw it, I was like, whoa, this pool of sticky blood and everything. It was super sensual and kind of amazing, but it was also this sort of moment between the two characters that felt really authentic. And it, talking about two-dimensionality and three-dimensionality, I felt like Andrew's character then all of a sudden became a little bit more three-dimensional at that moment, which was really kind of interesting in the sort of thing. It kind of went from being like really flat to this sort of like almost like in like Videodrome when like Debbie Harry's kind of coming out of the TV screen kind of thing. It just had that it had that same sort of vibe or an energy to it. If you can kind of maybe talk about a little bit about the sort of the motivation of that sex scene, how it was to shoot, and Austin, you can completely chime in for that as well, because you were sticking it to it as well.
I'll just start by saying it was a challenging day for a lot of reasons. Who knew that sliding around on a bunch of blood on the floor would be slippery? It was super challenging.
Go figure.
So, put your hand down and then it's like sliding around while you're trying to hold yourself steady, so there was a lot of things that went into it that were pretty wild. But, in general, that was one of those days that was insane, one that you'll never forget. It was both very fun and at the same time very terrible. It was cold, we're in this like studio freezing in this cold blood, so there's so many aspects that come into it. But Jim, you take it away and I'll chime in if need be.
Well, I mean, I was very drunk. I mean, it was full on. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Oh yeah. Actually, while we were shooting that, I drank a lot that I needed to piss. And then I wanted to get up, but it was so slippery that I couldn't. I was falling down each time. So they emptied the set for me and gave me a bucket so I can piss in it. And I pissed in it and gave it to them, and then we kept shooting.
I love this behind the scenes candor. I love this. It's amazing.
But yeah, for the story wise, basically, that's where that's basically because that like it happens right after Demir does what Andrew wants him to do. Because like technically, when you think him as this film program, technically, like he is willing to do something if something happens. Right. So that's what he's basically trying to make. And my character, like Demir, organically ends up doing that. And then basically that part kind of unlocks. So that happens, and then like that intimacy, which was supposed to happen with Drew organically if Demir wouldn't be interacting to Rebel Instinct. So and after that, basically Andrew characters kind of change, because like it's like from Demir's perspective, technically there is like this program Andrew, film Andrew, the role Andrew, and Demir wants him in a certain way. And Andrew keeps resisting that because of how he is scripted on Rebel Instinct. And then, but after that point, after Demir plays it by the rule, technically plays it by the script, then he ends up becoming who Demir wants him to be. Like basically he becomes, like from the beginning, Demir is projecting something onto Andrew that he is not. And that basically kind of distracts his program. And then by the end of it, after Demir obeys the script technically, then Andrew finally becomes what Demir has been projecting onto him.
Yeah, I mean that's super interesting sort of perspective that I didn't even think about when watching it. So thank you for that. The other thing about the sort of sexuality in the film too is that one, it's a truly queer film because it is sort of like kind of bisexual or pansexual, however you're going to want to sort of portray that. But there's a lot of like sort of this sexual tension between our triad of Drew, Andrew, and Demetrius. Like, and it's just sort of interesting, like that sort of how that sort of tension is sort of portrayed out. And maybe you could just maybe Jem, if you could speak a little bit about like the sort of reasoning behind sort of that sort of like almost jealousy that sort of happens on screen.
Yeah, well, technically, it's again what I said in like the very beginning to bring the sensuality. I needed that kind of a cheesy, cheesy 90s erotic thriller setting, like for the characters. And we kind of made fun of it with Morris and went even further, like by giving this incest relationship and stuff. And technically, it's all played out. So like if technically, if we would have watched Rebel Instinct, it would be the cheesiest erotic thriller film that you can find. That's what it would be. So it's technically, like also like at points also like maybe criticize those films, but not in a way because like I didn't do it with that intention. It's just like how it seemed in the end. Like for example, like objectifying female bodies, like back in the day it was normal, right? So technically, as someone who wants to make a homage for that, we needed to put it. But like at least right now, since it's the film that Demir enters in, it can maybe seem in a way that we are criticizing what they've been doing back in the day, but I don't think like that. I'm still a fan of like those films. So it's it was the most weird answer, I guess. Like I said, like two different things. I feel two different things at the same time. Yeah.
No, I think that you got the sort of the point across, but we can sort of we can kind of look backwards and sort of like appreciate those films and be a fan of those films, but also be critical of sort of what the sort of cultural ramifications that a lot of that had. So, I think I actually think that you gave me one answer. So I mean, Izzy, if to kind of go back to you, how is you sort of like as far as like the sort of jealousy? So I mean, you try to kill him with a knife. Like how is that sort of motivation for you and the story and your character and stuff like that?
Well, that was, yeah, I mean, I guess that was something that I kind of needed to get my head around in a way, because I don't generally want to kill people. So that was something I did need to delve into quite deeply, and that kind of a reaction is not very normal. So it's not like, obviously people flip, but I did want to try and kind of think like, why would someone be so like kind of sort of spin out in that way, simply by just these kind of like small things that maybe she picks up from what Demir's like, the looks he gives Andrew, and these little kind of like signs I guess she's picking up on. I think it is purely just the way that this relationship that she's had with her twin has kind of made her that way. That's the only relationship she knows, in a way. That's the only thing that she's ever known. And so I think like her just thinking Andrew is the only thing that is kind of good in her life, and the only sort of I guess like love that she has at that moment, that anybody who gets in the way is going to die. And so you kind of see a little bit of that with the girls in the trailer, and then the kind of like stabbing and how like that was, I think, so that was beforehand. And then so that's just kind of like the looks that he gives and the kind of the vibe that he's giving off, that he has a thing for Andrew, just flips a switch, and I think just spins her out in a way that she can't really control, because that's how she's grown up. It's sort of like she's been groomed in a way, like, not to say it's completely Andrew's fault, but it is, I think it is something that has been kind of built into her brain from her relationship with her twin to with Andrew. So it's just kind of like that's all she knows really, and so that kind of a reaction of trying to stab him and get him out of the picture is just like an automatic thing almost. So yeah, I think it's just something that has been built into her since she was quite young.
That's a great answer. And just sort of like kind of like throwing this out, and whether this is a right question or not question, do you think that Drew and Andrew are the same person?
Ooh.
Because I mean, the names are very similar, and it's like Drew and Drew. If anybody wants to speak on that.
I think that's for Jim to say.
Okay, yeah, fine.
Not to put you on, I just saw all the wheels just turning in your head. So
I mean, in the beginning, writing the story, it really only created started as a pun. But then thinking about it, like accidentally, actually, like, because it's also like that in their dynamic in the film, you know, like this in the mythology, it's like, you know, first woman who came to world was basically Lilith, but then she didn't want it. She didn't want Adam, so like she's been punished, and then they needed someone who's gonna obey Adam, so that's why they created Eve from Adam's backbone. So maybe it's a metaphor for that, them being this close, because it feels like that's kind of a dynamic in between them. But it didn't started with this. It started as a pun, and then I kind of put this thinking behind it and kind of made this connection, but it was coincidental.
Nice. Because I mean, the sort of there is so much psychology that's sort of tied up into your film. I mean, because it is sort of unpacking a trauma, and I want to go into it, but I'm like, at the same, I'm like, do we spoil this? Because it is such a linchpin in the script other. So I'm dancing around it as much as possible, without kind of like going too much into it, because I don't necessarily want to, if anybody hasn't seen this, to spoil that for them.
I think Drew thinks they're connected. I think that she thinks that's why there's, if she thinks that if someone gets in the way, then they will be separated forever. So I think that they are like, she thinks they are almost connected. Their souls are connected and they are meant to be together, and no one else is allowed to be there. So I think from her point of view, probably, but it's the whole thing.
Yeah, which makes it super interesting with the sort of the twin as well, because it's also another mirroring as well, with this sort of like slightly incestuous sort of thing going on as well. It's again, Jim, you made a fascinating film that deserves a huge unpacking of it.
That's again, like really more, also like Morris, you know, we spent an entire year almost just keep creating these, you know, and like in each rewrite we just put more and more thinking of it. And like Morris is also like someone very philosophical, awesome thinker, and like very, very amazing writer. So it was like we had like these really sessions of deep thinking, you know, and sometimes we would just, you know, make a, for example, that video drum scene, how that came up, like we were talking about video drum randomly. And then he asked me like some questions about the film, we were like kind of debating, and the answers I gave to him ended up my dialogue in the film. Like I thought Videodrome was only real world. I actually told him while we were talking about it, and he was like, "Oh wait, that's a great line," and then he was adding to it. So like our working dynamic is just very strange, and I love it.
I mean, there's a lot of Cronenberg sort of like influence in the film as well, like not just Videodrome, but I found actually the scene in the sex scene in the blood very like Rabid, like Cronenberg's Rabid, which I don't know if you've ever seen. It's kind of amazing. About a zombie. It's about a virus that makes people fuck each other to death.
Oh,
And it's kind of amazing. Marilyn Chambers is the star in it, who's a famous 70s porn star. It's really great if you haven't seen it. But it had you definitely had like like not just Videodrome, but you had like a sort of like a Cronenbergian canon kind of vibe in the film too, which also kind of plays into your sort of 80s and 90s sort of erotic thriller / horror kind of like sort of influences as well. So I mean, so I love this. I love watching this film so much.
Thank you. Well, honestly, I haven't seen that Rabbit of
Rabbit?
him. Like, yeah, I haven't seen it, and I'd like that. And honestly, I only thought of Videodrome, like from Cronenberg while creating Plagiarism, and that blood in Sex in the Blood scene is actually not inspired like directly from Cronenberg. I mean, yeah, thematically and visually it is similar, but like the main inspiration behind that, you know, like in it's Francis Bacon. It's just he has like this triptych of like 3 studies of crucifixion. So like, and we technically recreated these paintings as shots in the film. One of like it's like basic. It starts with the second one, which is Drew's death. The way we look at her dead body is the first painting. The second one, which is like the most surreal painting, that is the Sex in the Blood. And then we see the first one, which is the rape technique. So chronologically also we see that painting later on in the film. And then after that, the stitching is technically the 4th painting that is never painted.
Oh, interesting.
That is the stitching, yeah.
All right, one more question. Actually, I have 2 more questions, but one more question about the film, and then a question for everybody. So tell me a little bit about the symbolism of the pig, because the pig kind of has the sort of is featured in the film, but also like if I'm not mistaken, in the club, there's the cooked pig.
Yeah, it's a good eye.
We can kind of talk about that.
Well,
I guess it's bacon too.
That is also a pun, you know. It's like Francis Bacon, the pig. Also, the video store guys wear pig masks, so technically that is also brought to Rebel Instinct universe by Demir. And also like inverse and stuff, you know. Izzy says in the beginning, like, so he porks you until he dumps his protein. So it's like pork, bacons, and like actual bacons that Andrew cooks. It's just like basically was a thematic connection, which is also a pun with Francis Bacon.
It's so great. All right, so my last question for everybody. The pandemic, obviously, we're still sort of soaking in it. It's been kind of hard and a struggle for everybody. How are you doing currently in the sort of the state of things? And the second part of the question is, what's next for any of you? And maybe Izzy, you can start.
Well, I mean, it's been long, and obviously the film industry has not been doing amazingly, but I think things are picking up quite a bit now, which is amazing. I hear like small castings coming through, which is great, because during the first lockdown there was just absolutely nothing, like maybe one here or there. I've been kind of watching a lot of stuff, trying to do some monologues, trying to keep up, doing a bit of acting, rewatching some things that I've done and seeing like kind of picking it apart a little bit. And in terms of what's coming up, I have a sort of recurring role in Carnival Row on Amazon Prime, so I'm going back to shoot that. I just heard that I've been asked to come back in a few months, which is cool. So I'll be flying to Prague, I think in like a month or so for a few days to do some more on that. Yeah, I love Prague so much, which is where we shot it. Maybe you know.
Let's meet this time though, like please.
Yeah, no, definitely. We should meet up if things are open, which I guess they will be, or hopefully a little bit. So yeah, I'll be there for a few days. And Prague is just the best place. I love it so much. I love going back. I was stoked to be able to come back and shoot Playdurizm there. It was so amazing. So yeah, that's what's next for me.
Austin, maybe.
Yeah. Let's see. I've been doing pretty well during this lockdown, I guess. As an actor, you have a lot of downtime in your life, and I've learned to manage that over time. But really, I've been trying to be as productive as possible and to put all my energy into something that I can, get back from it. And so I've been basically dedicating all my time to trying to elevate my cooking. So I've been going crazy cooking in the kitchen. It's been great. It's keeping me entertained, trying to level up in that. But as far as film-wise, I shot a feature film in November and December of last year, which will be coming out either later this year or early 22, depending on how things shake out. But outside of that, I'm also a filmmaker. So I've been in the process now of writing a comedy martial arts film, me and a select group of other people. And so that's exciting. It's a lot of good stuff. I did 20 plus years of martial arts in my life. So it's something that's very close to me and exciting, but also going to get a chance to poke fun at it. So that's exciting. But that's what I'm doing all the time. I'm a video producer, so we work on commercials and things like that. Pretty much anything in the film industry, I just love being a part of it. I'm not a person that just wants to pick it up and set it down. I appreciate every aspect of it. I know that a rough cut's going to be rough and what you got to look for, So for me, film is more than just acting, though I do consider myself an actor first. And just going to keep writing my own projects, working on things, hopefully book a few more roles and keep on cooking, I guess.
That sounds great. I mean, and if that martial arts film has a main queer character, send it my way.
Hey, I'll give you a call.
Or it should be. Hint, 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 hint. Martin and Steve, how's the pandemic been treating you? What's next?
I mean, for us, it was not that bad, actually. We managed to sustain ourselves, thankfully, but for Playdurizm, it was obviously a bit of a hit, a delay, and very tricky, especially because we're first time, feature film producers to maneuver the landscape and know, okay, should we wait? Should we go online right away? What is the situation here? But then we had a great first premiere in Lausanne in Switzerland with audience, and that kind of gave us the confidence after seeing it with an audience that, we have a little gem of a movie, and we did it. Pun intended. Somebody had to do it. And now Wicked Queer, Calgary, we had Fantastic Four. Suddenly the festivals are coming in, and the season that we hope to have last year is now happening. So we're all attack on that, and we hope, COVID will not cross it again. And long term, we're Steve and myself, we're trying to push the genre here in Central Europe and Europe generally, which is a tricky thing. And we hope, at some point also to make Gems second feature. Of course, we want to continue with this crazy, unique stuff. As a filmmaker, it's a pure pleasure to make such movies.
Well, that sounds amazing. And again, anything that's queer, send it my way, because you have a platform here. Jem, you want to take us home?
What?
How has the pandemic been treating you? What's next?
What? I'm sorry, I totally lost it. What?
How has the pandemic been treating you? And what's next?
It's shit. I hate it. I'm gonna lose my mind very soon. I dumped my third boyfriend. I'm miserable. I'm sorry. I can't really give a humble answer to that. It's shit. I'm bored to death. I'm smoking weed all day, every day. But yeah, apart from all that self-pity that I do, we keep writing with more. It's like kind of nonstop. We have like right now 2 feature scripts and also 1 series.
Ooh.
I mean, yeah, so like we're actually getting ready to pitch that. Also, like there's like this another feature that I want to do with Steve and Martin the same way that we did plagiarism, but pandemic isn't treating us very well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's we'll
I mean, it's an honest answer. So it's like I expected it to be shit for somebody. So because
I'm sorry,
it's been up and down for me. So
anymore.
well, I want to thank everyone for joining me and chatting about plagiarism. What an awesome film. So it was a lot. I mean, as as hard as that twist is at the end, it's kind of a bright, kind of fun ride to get there. So yeah, so I mean thank you guys for making it, and thank you guys for sort of being a part of Wicked Queer. Audience, if you have not seen Plagiarism, what are you waiting for? It's playing April 8th to the 18th. To get tickets and to find out the full festival schedule, go to www.wickedqueer.org. Again, cast and crew Plagiarism, thank you so much. It was a pleasure sitting down and chatting with you. And yeah, we'll see what's next soon.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.